Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving deep into the murky waters of Ohio's Little Miami River to unravel one of the state's most bizarre and honestly most resilient mysteries. We're talking about a cryptid that's captured imaginations for generations, totally blurring the lines between a spooky campfire story, a true crime mystery, and, well, pure civic pride. I'm talking, of course, about the Loveland Frogman. So let's just get right into it and see how a terrifying roadside encounter morphed into this massive, beloved cultural phenomenon. Okay, I want you to picture this. You're driving alone down a pitch-black rural road in the absolute dead of night. You pull over, your headlights wash over the riverbank, and, well, ask yourself, what stands 4 feet tall, walks on 2 legs, and carries a magic wand? I know, it sounds like the punchline to a really weird joke, doesn't it? But for one unnamed traveling businessman back in 1955, this was definitely no joke. This was the terrifying reality of his night, and it literally kicked off a legend that would haunt the town of Loveland, Ohio, for decades. The sheer level of detail in this very first reported encounter is just fascinating. So it's 3:30 a.m. in 1955. This traveling businessman claims he saw not one, but 3 disturbing creatures clustered right by the side of the road. He described them as being 3 to 4 feet tall, standing totally upright on 2 legs. They had this leathery, hairless skin and wide, deep wrinkled faces that looked exactly like frogs. But here's the detail that absolutely gets me every time. He claimed they were communicating with each other, and one of them was holding a wand or a rod that was literally emitting sparks. It freaked the guy out so badly that he fled the scene and actually reported it to the local police the very next morning. Which brings us to part 1 of our explainer, decades of strange sightings, from 1955 to 2016. Because you see, this wasn't just a one-off hoax that quickly faded away. We start with our businessman in 55, right? Then, things actually go relatively quiet until 1972 when the creature makes a dramatic return, this time crossing paths with local law enforcement. And then, amazingly enough, the legend leaps all the way into the digital age in 2016, when teenagers hunting for virtual monsters stumble across what they think is a very real one. Let's zoom in on that 1972 spike, though, because that is when things get really serious. The crucial thing to understand here is authority. Look, a lot of people will dismiss a lone driver at 3:30 in the morning, but when on-duty police officers start filing official reports about a bipedal frog monster, that changes the game entirely. The legend gained immediate, serious traction in the community, and it provided this real sense of credibility that forever cemented the Frogman into local history. So let's look at the actual evidence the police provided. In early March of 1972, Officer Ray Shockey was driving near the Little Miami River when his headlights caught something crouching on the road. He officially reported a large frog-like creature that stood up on 2 legs, stared right at him, and then leapt over the guardrail. Pretty wild, right? Well, 2 weeks later, Officer Mark Matthews was driving that exact same stretch of road and saw something similar. But Matthews didn't just watch it run away. Knowing absolutely no one would believe him, he pulled his weapon and shot the creature as it crawled under the guardrail. He actually recovered the body from the dark and tossed it into the trunk of his cruiser to show Officer Shockey. Just imagine the suspense of driving back to the station with an unknown cryptid bleeding out in the trunk of your car. The legend was officially born, and it absolutely thrived on those police accounts. Now, let's fast forward to 2016. A guy named Sam Jacobs and his girlfriend were wandering near Lake Isabella at night, completely engrossed in playing Pokémon Go on their phones. But instead of finding a digital creature, Jacobs stated, "I swear on my grandmother's grave that this is the truth. I'm not sure whether it was a frogman or just a giant frog. Either way, I've never seen anything like it." They even took photos and a video, though honestly it was mostly just glowing eyes in the dark. But the irony here is just wonderful, isn't it? Hunting for fake monsters on your phone only to be terrified by a local legend. Okay, moving on to part 2, iguanas, beavers, or bullfrogs. So remember Officer Mark Matthews, the cop who shot the creature and put it in his trunk back in 1972? Well, when that 2016 Pokémon Go story went viral, Matthews actually called up a reporter to finally pop the cryptid balloon once and for all. Turns out, when he opened his trunk back in '72, he didn't find a magical bipedal frog. He noted it was a large iguana, about 3 or 3.5 feet long, and because it was missing its tail, it had this blunt, really bizarre appearance that made it super difficult to identify in the dark. It is incredibly fascinating to see how a myth is built out of reality. The terrifying frogman was in reality a cold, tailless, escaped pet iguana.
Matthews theorized that this tropical lizard was surviving the freezing Ohio March weather by huddling near pipes that discharged warm cooling water from the nearby Totes boot tree. You can easily see how a half-frozen iguana scurrying awkwardly across the road on a pitch-black night could morph into a 4-foot frogman in the minds of startled drivers.
But, the iguana isn't the only explanation the community has come up with over the years. Local history buffs and nature enthusiasts have proposed some really fascinating alternatives. Some locals point out that massive beavers live right along the Little Miami River, and when they forage for corn or soybeans, they can rear up on their hind legs and waddle, which looks remarkably like a short, thick cryptid. Others blame the local Warren County bullfrogs, which are known to grow absolutely massive and can act incredibly aggressively. And then, what about our 1955 businessman and his sparking wand? Well, UFO researchers have suggested it wasn't a cryptid at all, but a close encounter of the third kind with alien beings collecting soil samples using a radiation device. I mean, why not? And that leads us to our final section, from monster to mascot.
The best part of this whole story is that the town of Loveland didn't hide from their weird history, they leaned all the way in, executing this brilliant civic rebranding. Step 1, they put up a commemorative plaque down by the river right where the cops had their encounters. Step 2, in 2014, the legend was adapted into a wonderfully titled bluegrass musical comedy called Hot Damn, It's the Loveland Frog. Step 3, they launched an entire annual Frogman Festival to draw in tourists, cryptid lovers, and local vendors. And the final step? In 2023, the city of Loveland officially designated the Frogman as their actual city mascot.
So today's Frogman is a far cry from the sparking wand-wielding terror of the 1950s. He's now depicted as this friendly, outdoorsy local. The city uses him to promote healthy activities, like riding the Little Miami Scenic Bike Trail or paddling down the river. They even host a special Return of the Frogman community event every leap year. And they actively encourage visitors to snap pictures around town and use the hashtag Loveland Frogman. It is literally a masterclass in using local folklore to build community identity and bring people together. And that brings us to our final thought for this explainer. The Loveland Frogman shows us that folklore isn't just about getting scared in the dark, It's about the stories that bind a community together and give a place its unique flavor. So, I leave you with this. What local legend is hiding in your hometown's history? Is there an old myth waiting to be investigated, or maybe even celebrated? Dig into your local archives, because honestly, you might be surprised by the monsters lurking in your own backyard. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the shadows.